Assalamu alaikum viewers, a very warm welcome to all of you. You're watching Hidayet TV and I'm Haider Zaidi with another episode of Generation Gap. Viewers, as you're all aware that we try to talk about those issues which are less highlighted in the mainstream media, and sometimes they try to obfuscate the truth, and also it's our try to present views from different generations so common grounds can be found and difference of opinion can be celebrated. If you want us to talk about some issue which you think is more relevant to our society, please do write to us. Our email is on the screen, and you can also follow us on Twitter. Account is at GenerationGap14. Viewers, since 2001, after 9/11, the governments in the West, and in particular the United States, have developed several strategies and plans to combat terrorism. One of the most debated one to date is the use of unmanned aircraft system, also known as drone. There have been surgical strikes as well as signature strikes, and throughout 2013 the US has launched 21 airstrikes in Yemen, 18 so far in Pakistan. Stats are given by Long War Journal, and 365 drone strikes since 2004, killing almost 3,577 people, including 197 children. These figures disputed because US officials will quote a different figure. And in the recent days, we have seen Indian army has been using drone. They have recently violated Pakistani airspace. Israeli military has killed suspected Islamic militants in Egypt recently. And there's a surge of drone strikes in Yemen, and which we saw recently, the week commencing 5th of August. And after that, there was a closure of 19 diplomatic missions all across the world. Gregory Johnson, author of The Lost Refuge, Yemen, Al-Qaeda and Americans' War in Arabia, he writes that the intelligence agencies have reacted to several threats and first temporarily shut down the embassies and consulate throughout the Middle East, and then the second is to order a surge in drone strike in Yemen. But are these drone strikes effective? Is it just giving a false hope to US military and the intelligence? This is our today's topic, and we'll talk to our distinguished guest. Let me introduce the panel. They are joined us from United States. Stephen Lendman, radio presenter on Progressive Radio, based in Chicago, United States. He has also served in the US Army. He writes on major world and national issues and has written several books. Also on the audio we will have Asim Khan from London. He's been a PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Movement for Justice in Pakistan supporter who vocally opposes the drone strikes for many years, and he has joined PTI as party in 2007, elected London president in year 2012, and at the moment he is serving around the world, and including Pakistan he's talked about. So let me start with you, Stephen, please. Give us a background about the drone and its history.
Well, drones go back a long way, Saeed. They go back at least to the 1970s. And I believe in the Vietnam era, they began by being used for surveillance. But you begin one way, and you escalate, and you graduate to other ways. The technology increases, it improves. If you can imagine this, Saeed, by 2020, America plans to have somewhere on the order of maybe 20 to 30,000 drones overflying virtually every part of America. The idea is for monitoring, is for surveillance, but again, escalation is very, very simple. These will be the same kinds of predator drones. They could be armed with missiles. They can target anybody. If they can kill people abroad in other countries, they can target them, and they can kill them in America, and make no mistake about it.
Okay, but you know, I mean, it's a multi-billion dollars industry. So what's wrong? Where it goes wrong? Is it more about privacy invasion, or more to do with the covert operations?
Well, it's got everything to do with war and peace, the way they're used. As far as monitoring goes, we can be monitored in many, many ways. We've found out many more ways. All of our emails can be read, our telephone calls can be listened to, satellites can monitor us from space, and drones can monitor us from 20 or 30,000 feet in the air. We can be monitored in all kinds of ways. In cities like Chicago, in New York, in London, these cities are infested with monitoring cameras. You can't go out on the street. You can't go into a public building. You can't go into a shopping mall. My goodness, maybe you can't go into a bathroom without there being monitors, cameras, and they're not easy to spot unless you're looking for them.
Okay. Let me get Asim from London now. Asim, 365 drone strikes since 2004, 313 of them under Obama regime, and killing almost 3,500 people, including 197 children. How does this resonate? I mean, does it make any sense to you, or?
I think it sort of, it has to be taken in two formats. I mean, it makes sense if you were to think of that the way the Americans are basically wants to pursue its policies, and it for them is perhaps is the most cost-effective solution. But if I were to look at as a human being, as a Pakistani as well, and as a citizen of this world, it is the most inhumane and barbaric practice that has been raged on for many years. And the impact of that is obviously has been huge and catastrophic. I mean, if you were to basically think, the thing that it has led to is the instability as well, the extremism in Pakistan, and all the suicide attacks that are happening. And it's the composition of Pakistan, and especially in the tribal belt, that has dramatically changed. It has changed to such a degree that it's basically now, is the figures you've just quoted, I think the updated figures, I mean, they're going around 4,410 and so, and it's rising. And basically, and why they have done that is basically, is you have literally, they have violated all the international norms, laws, and regulations. All the human rights organizations are now basically have taken up on that as well. And then the violation of Pakistan's sovereignty as well. And it's basically a kind of, in summary, that it goes against the very principle which the West or the USA wants to uphold, i.e. the democracy, its values and system. But the approach they have taken is just completely defies the logic. I mean, the only thing visible to us in Pakistan, and I hope to the rest of the world as well, and people like Stephen are basically highlighting this, and is that it's total brutality. It's no inconsideration. And it's just going on. And we as a party basically, and our chairman Imran Khan, we have been saying these things for last so many years. In fact, last year the peace march to Waziristan was held as well, and a lot of organizations actually attended that. Code Pink was one of them.
Yeah, so also I would like to say that we are trying to get to Media Benjamin, who heads Code Pink, and hopefully she'll join us. Okay, please go ahead.
And it's basically a mixture of all these things where the USA has adopted a policy, which that policy is a policy of disaster. And as Stephen was saying, basically that by the time year 2020, I mean, they're keen to have 20,000 to 30,000 drones. So imagine the composition of the whole world or a particular region where you're deploying all these things, and what would happen. So it's amazing that the whole concept, all the organizations that have been put in place, you have UN, United Nations, Security Council, all the other organizations in the world, if you ask them basically, is this the way to actually basically invade countries? Is this the way to actually go after people? What happened to the dialogue? I mean, isn't dialogue the basic principle of democracy, to get to a consensus or a decision?
But you know, I mean, if you talk from their perspective, and let me get in Stephen from here. I mean, their narrative or their official line, I would say, is that no official Americans die. So this is a more sort of defensive strategy they have. So what's exactly wrong with it if they don't want to go with their own troops?
The Americans are not dying, but the Pakistanis are dying.
Yes, initially they initiated the war, so they have to look from their defense perspective.
It's not the war was initiated by us. I mean, Americans, yes, as I said earlier on, I mean, that for their perspective, The casualties are hardly any. It's cost effective. You cannot monitor, you cannot trace, you cannot shoot them down. And basically, it's the most easiest solution for these guys. But just imagine on the other side that the people who are dying, the majority of the people who are actually being killed are children, women, innocent people. I mean, if one were to say that, okay, one drone attack actually takes care of all the people they've had on their list, most of the time, I mean, the percentage is almost 5 to 10%. The rest of them are civilians. I mean, how do you justify that?
No, I understand. I'm not giving any justification.
No, I understand from your point of view that the narrative which they're building up, but that narrative is not necessarily the narrative which the rest of the world wants to hear or see. I mean, especially not in Pakistan. I mean, we've totally fed up with this, basically this narrative as well, and the way.
But I will come back to you and talk about this. That how government of Pakistan is, I would say, complicit in all this. Stephen, what's your take on that, their defensive point of view or the defensive strategy? I mean, how do you look at it?
Well, I see nothing defensive about what's going on, Saeed. American policy is completely offensive. And the Pakistan government, on the one hand, claims it deplores the notion that America can launch drone strikes over Pakistani territory and kill Pakistani citizens. And on the other hand, silently behind the table, it does nothing to stop it. It goes along with U.S. policies. It's done so since 2001. I see no chance that this will change. Follow the policies. Ignore the rhetoric. American policies are belligerent. It's got nothing to do with self-defense. It's got everything to do with lawless aggression. Every war that America wages, direct wars, proxy wars, partial wars like against Pakistan, they're wars of aggression. They're illegal. They're absolutely unconscionable. There's no way you can go along with this. And the people who suffer most are innocent civilians. We can get into the kind of people that drone attacks kill. They kill a very small percentage of what America calls high-value targets.
Okay, let's talk more about high-value targets. Waliur Rahman, the deputy leader of Pakistan Taliban, Baitullah Masood, Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen, they all were killed by these drone strikes. And when US government wanted to capture Osama bin Laden, then two stealth goes in Pakistani territory and pick him up from there. So, I mean, is there any difference of opinion between the intelligence that if it's a high-value target, they can be killed and captured by the stealth, or innocent civilians can be killed by drones? Stephen, please.
Can I add a comment about bin Laden first?
Pardon?
Can I comment on bin Laden?
Yeah, please.
Well, let me be clear and unequivocal. Obama had nothing to do with killing bin Laden. You cannot kill a dead man twice.
So let's try to. Okay, please.
Well, the important thing I want to emphasize is that in July 2002, the New York Times, I wrote about this, and I quoted the New York Times directly. July 2002, the New York Times reported that bin Laden died of natural causes 6 months earlier. That would make it about December 2001. And he was, quote unquote, buried in southern Afghanistan. BBC reported the same thing. Fox News in America.
Assalamu alaikum viewers, a very warm welcome to all of you. You're watching Hidayet